He's man's best friend.
He wakes me up from nightmares.
And also his top doc.
Definitely do improve mood when doing pet therapy.
How these companion canines are helping save lives.
Well, welcome to the 700 Club. The United States Senate has taken up a controversial measure against China. And some politicians claim that China has an unfair advantage against the United States in international trade.
But China actually warns that the bill could lead to a trade war. Paul Strand explains what's in the bill and why some analysts warn it could seriously hurt the economy.
The Senate bill would punish China because critics say it's keeping its currency artificially low or undervalued. And that makes Chinese goods cheaper and American exports to China more expensive. Backers of the bill say China suppressing its currency has cost almost 3 million American jobs in the last decade. So many lawmakers are desperate to do something.
Our jobs and economic picture, as we all know, is bleak. The line of unemployed workers would stretch across America and back again.
Senators like Pennsylvania Democrat Bob Casey say there's a unanimity across party lines in his state about
the adverse impact that China currency policies have had on our jobs.
But experts like the Heritage Foundation's Derek Scissors say the facts show no actual connection between China's low currency and America's high jobless rate.
If you look at 20 years of data, here's China's currency, here's our unemployment, you can't find a link.
Some Chinese officials, Republicans, and major U.S. businesses are warning lawmakers that they are playing with fire and that the U.S. could set off a trade war. If America slaps punishing tariffs on China, its second largest trading partner and the fastest growing importer of American goods, China is sure to slap back with tariffs on U.S. exports.
They're going to want to show how tough they are. We're going to want to show how tough we are. And that's the conditions where you could get a trade war.
Both sides would likely get seriously hurt, and already cash-strapped consumers would end up paying more for all sorts of products. For many analysts, the prospect for economic friction between the United States and China raises the possibility that a global recession could turn into something even worse.
You could get going back and forth, bigger and bigger, more and more damaging bills, and that would start the trade conflict.
The world saw this in the 1930s when America's lawmakers kicked off a trade war that some analysts believe made the Depression even worse than it would have been. This time around, with the world's first and second biggest economies fighting it out.
What would happen in a U.S.-China trade war is it would scare financial markets. Everybody would panic. So everything that you see now with flights into gold, flights into U.S. Treasury bonds, that would happen even more so. Smaller countries' economies would just collapse because all the money would leave. It could cause a lot of global harm. And obviously, this is a time where our economy and the global economy are both weak, the worst possible time for it.
Scissors says what China really does that's harmful is refuse to let other nations compete with Chinese state-owned industries like in steel and oil. But working to change that takes long, hard, patient negotiating.
And 2011, high unemployment, election year coming, nobody in D.C. is feeling very patient.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
You know, you need to let your voice be known, ladies and gentlemen, against this. This is the most iniquitous nonsense. It is a lectureering politician trying to pander to their base to set up a boogeyman someplace to say, well, the problem isn't ours. It isn't because we've got regulations. It isn't because the banks can't lend money. It isn't because we've passed all these stupid bills. The reason is China. So you point at something thousands of miles away and say, it's those guys, they did it, and let's hurt them. That would be very unwise. It would be foolish. And we hearken back to the late 1920s when they passed the Smoot-Hawley tariff bill that just killed the nations around the world, and it deepened the recession into a major depression which lasted for years. We can't do it. So let your congressman know. We understand Congressman Boehner is against it and others in the House. And the House has got to stop this thing because it seems like it's on a steamroller going through the Senate. So that's the number. You can call your congressman. But just, ladies and gentlemen, this is just foolishness. We're not losing jobs because of China. We're losing jobs because the government is fouling up the industry, and there's uncertainty. People don't know what the taxes are going to be. There's this war of Obama's against the rich and those who create jobs. There's the, carbon tax, and there are all these things that they're doing, and the EPA regulations, hundreds and hundreds of regulations that are stifling industry. That's what's causing the job problem. It's not China. We can beat China. If we can't beat China, there's something wrong with us. But we have a gross domestic product it used to be 10 times China. I don't know whether it's a little bit less than that percentage, but we're huge compared to China. China's big, but we're much, much bigger. So it's time we act like it. But this thing is, I just can't speak enough against it because it's terrifying to think what these people can do to us. Congress, they'd be so much better if they just went home and enjoyed life, sat by the beach, drank a mint julep or something, and left these laws alone. Well, Wendy Griffith has the rest of our top stories from the CBN newsroom. Wendy.
Thank you, Pat. President Obama has been traveling the country urging Republicans in Congress to pass his jobs bill. He's been blaming the GOP for not getting the bill through Congress, but Tuesday he took his message to Dallas.
At least put this jobs bill up for a vote so that the entire country knows exactly where members of Congress stand.
The problem is the measure is being blocked by Senate Democrats, not Republicans. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell called for a vote on the measure Tuesday, but Democratic Majority Leader Harry Reid stopped him. That's because Democrats in the Senate do not have enough votes to pass the president's plan, even though Democrats control the Senate. So they're trying to rewrite parts of the bill in order to get enough Democrats on board to pass it. Pat, the Democrats are holding it up.
Well, the Democrats come from high-tax states like New York and New Jersey, and they come from oil states like Louisiana, and they realize that this bill is a job killer, and they're not going to let it go through. Harry Truman campaigned back in the 1940s against a do-nothing Congress. And it was controlled by the Republicans, and he says they're not doing anything. And he got on a train, he did a so-called whistle stop, and it was, quote, give them hell, Harry. And he went out and he lambasted the do-nothing Congress. Well, the Congress, at least half of it, is in the control of the president's own party. And until just recently, all Congress was in the control of the president's party. They could have done all kinds of things that they didn't do. And now people realize that the no jobs bill that has been proposed so far has worked. Short-term fixes don't work. They need long-term solutions. They need long-term stability. They need lower corporate taxes, lower capital gains taxes, lower income taxes, and stability in government regulations. They need to cancel about 2/3 of the regulations they put in place and let American industry free. And we can win. But this business that's going on right now, like a jobs bill, is just throwing money down a rat hole. Wendy?
Pat, Moodys Investor Service has cut its credit rating on Italy's government bonds, and the credit rating agency is warning that it may cut the ratings of other Eurozone countries as well. That's because of the debt crisis in Europe. Italy has the 8th largest economy in the world. Its debt is estimated to be 119% the size of its economy. Moodys doesn't think Italy is likely to default, but the country has needed some help from the European Central Bank to get through its recent debt problems. Here at home, another warning about the U.S. economy, this time from Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke. Many economists say the U.S. is falling into a recession, and Bernanke told Congress that economic recovery is in danger of faltering. But he says the Fed is ready to step in and help. Heather Sells has the story.
Nevertheless, it is clear that overall, the recovery from the crisis has been much less robust than we had hoped.
Bernanke offered a grim assessment to lawmakers in the Joint Economic Committee. His biggest concerns, the economy barely grew in the first half of the year. It created no net jobs in August. Europe's debt crisis is growing, and consumer confidence fell dramatically this summer. Bernanke noted that people are clearly unhappy with what's going on. When asked about demonstrators protesting Wall Street this week, he expressed sympathy.
At some level, I can't blame them. Certainly, 9% unemployment and very slow growth is not a very good situation.
Bernanke told lawmakers that while the Federal Reserve has plans, Congress must also do its part. He praised the effort to reduce the debt, but also warned against deep spending cuts. And he called on Congress to review the, quote, quality of government to make sure its programs and taxes are helping the economy.
As you think about reducing our deficits and putting us on a sustainable path, which is critically important, it's also important to think about, how good is our tax system? How efficient and how effective is it? How equitable is it? How effective is our government spending? Is it producing the results we want? Is it supporting growth and recovery?
The Fed holds a policy meeting in 1 month. Bernanke told lawmakers it may well include more action to try and reduce the risk of another recession. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Support for Republican presidential candidate Herman Cain is increasing dramatically. Cain and Mitt Romney are tied at the top of the Republican field in a new CBS News poll. Each have 17% support from primary voters. Texas Governor Rick Perry fell into third place with just 12%. Well, a third of post-9/11 U.S. veterans think the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan weren't worth fighting. A new poll by the Pew Research Center finds that although they're proud of their work overseas, many service members think America should focus less on foreign affairs and more on problems here at home. The poll also finds that post-9/11 veterans are more likely to disapprove of President Obama's job performance and are more likely to call themselves Republicans. Pat, is this surprising to you?
Well, it is somewhat surprising because these are very patriotic people and they go to war and sacrifice themselves. But they realize, what have we done in Iraq? When it's all over with, what have we done? We've turned that country over to a Shiite, well, it's supposedly a secular government, but it's essentially a theocracy that'll be tied in with Iran before it's all over with. What have we accomplished? What have we done? Well, we got rid of a dictator. Big deal. And all that business about weapons of mass destruction was just political propaganda. He didn't have any nuclear bombs. He had some poisonous gas. And he was a bad man. He was mean to his people. But nevertheless, we blew $1 trillion and many lives of precious servicemen and women for that cause, and it's foolish. Now we're in Afghanistan, and we've got a crook as the president of that country, tribal warlords fighting each other, a monstrous trade in heroin that we are putting an umbrella covering over, and our men are being slaughtered once again, come down in helicopter crashes and so forth, and brave men are dying. Who needs it? I mean, it isn't lack of wisdom to say that's a quagmire. It hasn't served the Brits very well in the 19th century, and it won't serve us. What are we going to do with Afghanistan? Who needs it once you get it? And if you had an honest government and a true democratic system, it might be something worth struggling for. But the minute we get out of there, the Taliban will take over. So why bother? Why don't we just tell Karzai, okay, you've got to, we've stood up your police force, and it's your country, you run it, and let's see what happens. And what will happen is those warlords will start fighting each other again inside of Afghanistan. But anyhow, there are those who think it's isolationist to want to pull back from something like that, but that's another $1 trillion down the rat hole we can't afford. Well, if you look at Europe, you find the highest incidence of heart attacks in the world in a country called Finland. And I imagine Denmark is close behind. Why? They are big producers of dairy products. And guess what Denmark is going to do? It's going to take aim at its own largest export. Wendy.
That's right, Pat. Denmark is implementing a fat tax on foods such as butter and oil. It's part of an effort to put an end to unhealthy eating habits. The new tax will be the equivalent of $3 for every 2.2 pounds of saturated fat in a product. Denmark's parliament approved the move to help increase the country's average life expectancy. Other European countries are watching the Danish tax closely as they consider similar taxes. Pat, this can't be good news for pastry lovers, but, would such a tax work here in the U.S.?
Well, I think we're aiming at the wrong thing. Of course, the Danes, they've got these wonderful hams. They have marvelous butter. They have all kinds of cheese. I mean, that's their big deal. And so they're going to tax the thing that has made them well known. A tax on fat, it's trans fats, Wendy, that's doing the job. And it's also, it's high fructose corn syrup that they put into everything. That is the killer, and that's what's making people fat. And I think that, well, obviously we shouldn't gorge ourselves on meat and things with that kind of fat, high saturated fat. And I'm a great fan of vegetables and fiber and all that. But nevertheless, I think a tax on butter would be, well, one more insane thing, but who would put it past Congress? They'll probably pass something like that pretty soon. The nanny state is hard at work. And
I was listening to that story and I thought, you know what? I don't, the fat tax, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's kind of what you said, which is they should go for the people who are processing the food to say, get the real butter, the real sugar, the real ingredients, and not the high fructose corn syrup, and not all the imitators and the trans fat. That's the issue.
All right.
Well, here's a riddle. Do you like riddles? What has 4 legs, a tail, and can save someone's life? Well, we're going to let you know right after this.
Got a question for Pat? Send us yours now on CBN.com. We'll bring it online with your questions from our live chat room later on today's 700 Club.
Do you have money to burn? If not, you need to know that the paper dollars you're invested your life savings in are being consumed right now in a growing blaze of inflation and declining value. Economists know why the dollar is burning and at risk of crashing. It's because politicians and central bankers keep printing them. And this makes the dollars you've worked so hard for worth less and less. The politicians and bankers hated the gold standard because it forced them to be honest. That's why the US dollar keeps losing value and could soon crash. The good news is that you can create your own personal gold standard and keep your savings protected when the dollar crashes. Call or visit online now. Find out more about the best performing assets of the 21st century from the best company in the country, Swiss America.
Tomorrow, they call them drug muggers, and they're robbing you of your health. America's most trusted pharmacist, Susie Cohen, tells you which of your prescription drugs may be making you sicker. Plus, he did everything he could.
I could hear my boys on the other side of the wall of flames yelling for their daddy.
But it wasn't enough.
I saw the walls falling in on the trailer.
What he did next, tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Well, I got a puppy. I got a Doberman Pinscher puppy from a superb breeder, and he turned out to be an absolutely gorgeous animal, and we made him a star. Some lady Saturday said, I saw Pat, and I got a chance to get a picture with Blue. I mean, it was kind of funny.
That's true. They were talking about Blue. That's true.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyhow, I gave Blue away to service. He's got an important new job. He's now working with Operation Blessing. He brings comfort to people who've just suffered a disaster. And this is a footage of Blue with flood victims in North Carolina. And dogs can be a tremendous asset. As Laurie Johnson shows, they could even save lives. Watch this.
Service dogs meet a person's physical needs in ways that traditional medicine cannot. Their constant companionship can help the disabled manage everyday life. Mark Hagan is meeting his service dog, Chloe, for the very first time. She will help Mark with his dangerous type of diabetes.
In the last couple of years, I've gotten what's called hypoglycemic unaware, which means I can't sense what my blood sugar is doing. I can't tell if it's high. I can't tell if it's low. So I will drop into an unsafe area where I can't help myself any longer.
Chloe is so well trained that she can actually smell if Mark's blood sugar is too high or too low. She will then touch him with her paws which alarms Mark, but is hardly noticeable to anyone else.
One of the things that everyone wants to make sure of is that when the service dog is out in public, it's well behaved, it's well mannered, and it's not being disruptive to the environment or to the people around it.
It took 9 months to transform Chloe from a rambunctious, untrained pooch to the trustworthy service dog she is today. Scott Smith and Mark Hackathorn have been training all types of service dogs for 30 years now. This is a winning situation for everyone, including the dogs, because many service dogs, like Tala here, are rescues. Mark searches Craigslist and the newspaper for dogs whose families no longer want them. He trains all breeds, but is partial to poodle mixes like Tala because many are hypoallergenic. He loves what he does, except saying goodbye.
It's a little sad sometimes because we're working with the dogs so closely. But I realized that these dogs were really given to me through however they got to me to then get to people to help them save their life.
Service dogs vastly improve the lives of people who are blind, epileptic, deaf, or those at risk for heart attacks, stroke, and even panic attacks. Luis, a war veteran, suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder.
He's really a guardian angel of sorts, and I believe that God sends beings like Tuesday into our lives to help us on our journey.
Luis returned from Iraq with both physical and emotional wounds that left him afraid to leave his apartment. In his book, Until Tuesday, Luis describes how God is using Tuesday to heal him.
And in crowded places which can remind me of riots and difficult situations in Iraq, I can literally ask him to act as a buffer between a group of people and myself. He wakes me up from nightmares. He's been trained to do that, and he helps me walk. I have a spinal condition, so he balances me when I walk, particularly downstairs.
In addition to service dogs, therapy dogs also bring help and healing. These pets visit people with special needs. Abby here helps lift the spirits of tiny cancer patients at the Children's Hospital in Norfolk, Virginia.
There are studies that show that, people with chronic pain or chronic illnesses do have less stress, less anxiety, can kind of lower heart rate, kind of decrease blood pressure, and definitely do improve mood when doing pet therapy.
Therapy dogs are special because they always have to be on good behavior. They do not have to be trained nearly as thoroughly as service dogs, but therapy dogs do have to pass a test.
They have to be able to sit on command and down on command and stay, and some of the basic obedience. And then they do some more advanced stuff with them, like they have to be able to walk by food without gobbling it up, and they have to not be distracted. We do distractions with like wheelchairs and walkers and things that the dog might not see in everyday life.
Therapy dogs bring a lot of love to people in nursing homes and assisted living centers. The residents say holding the dogs makes them feel comfortable and relaxed.
She loves everybody. She doesn't bark. I've never really heard her bark.
So therapy dogs and service dogs take the nickname of man's best friend to a new level by offering help to the hurting. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Lori, that is so sweet. The famous remark of President Harry Truman about Washington, and said, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog.
That is true. I have to admit this, and I need to admit this to the public. I was the person who never really liked animals or dogs or anything. I just didn't, because I didn't grow up with them. Yeah. And then, when my son begged for a dog, we got Ginger. I now am that person who does everything I said I would never do.
You love dogs.
I love that dog. I kiss her. She sleeps with me. I hug her. Everything I would never do, I do.
She's a dog.
She's a dog, but she's so cute.
Oh, yeah, treat her like a dog.
I treat her like a dog.
You get allergy if she sleeps with you. That's not good. But anyhow, I've had Cocker Spaniels. I've had Borzois. I've had Irish Setters. I've had Irish Water Spaniels. I've had several Doberman Pinschers. I've had German Shepherds. What have I forgotten? And I'm sure I've had.
And Blue. What was
Blues
Blue,
and
a Doberman? You said a Doberman?
We've had little poodles. We've had medium-sized poodles. We've had a couple of standard poodles.
So you've had a lot of dogs.
And pointers when I was growing up, and setters.
Well, look at you.
Hunting dogs.
Really?
Yeah.
Good to know.
I grew up with dogs everywhere.
And you never let them sleep with you? Oh, come on, you know you did
You
at one
go to
point.
bed with dogs, you wake up in fleas. That's it. All right, what's next?
All right, well, up next, a horror movie alum is spooked by a bump in the night.
It sounded like a gargling noise, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, it sounds like the inside of a whale."
Find out what the noise was when we return.
You are our newest billionaire.
I just can't wait till the day when you knock on my door. I can't believe it. This is fantastic. You're walking on sunshine. Wow. Is this a joke? Walking on sunshine.
Watch your mail for the Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes or go to PCH.com and enter. November 30th, you could win $1 million plus $5,000 a week for life.
Hello, friends. Pat Boone here to talk to the 50 million adults in the U.S. who suffer from arthritis and anybody who has back, joint, or muscle pain. Let me explain to you how a safe step walk-in tub can help you reduce your pain and have you feeling great. This tub offers incredible therapeutic relief for all kinds of aches, pains, and stress with dual hydro massage jets specially targeted to sore muscles and joints in your legs and lower back. A safe step walk-in tub means independence for people with limited mobility and has more standard features than any other tub. Safety never felt so good with the built-in support bar and the safer, less than 4-inch step-up, so you barely have to lift your feet to get in. These tubs are made right here in the USA, installation is included, and they come with a lifetime warranty. So, take your first step toward feeling great and stay in the home you love. Call now for more information.
To see this week's top on-demand videos, go to cbn.com.
As an actress, Gigi has had roles in what are called slasher flicks, such as Quiet Kill, Cheerleader Massacre, and Vampire in Vegas. She became known as a scream queen until the horrors from her movies started following her off the set.
And I remember sitting there and the curtain opened, and it was like I realized at that moment, this was it for me. This is where I was supposed to be.
Gigi Ernetta was born in New York and began her professional performing career at the age of 8. When her parents moved to Houston, she joined the Houston Ballet Company and was chosen for a lead child role in The Nutcracker.
I got my first dancing contract when I was 14. I auditioned for my first commercial when I was 15, and I did it in English and Spanish for McDonald's. And that's how it started.
Gigi continued her acting and dance until the end of high school. She received numerous awards and received a scholarship to the University of Texas Drama Department. During her time in college, Gigi worked in radio and married. As her career developed, she felt it was time to move to Hollywood.
Hi, it's me, Hollywood's Gossip Princess, and do I have a scoop for you?
I realized that Hollywood was really hard, and people kept saying, oh, you can do that. It won't hurt your career, it's work. And I had started to take jobs that I shouldn't have been taking. They were late night, and they were these really racy movies that, they're not pornography, but they're really pushing the threshold. I did zombie films. I did vampire films.
Soon, Gigi was known for her extensive work in horror films and was quickly labeled a scream queen.
I think that the darkness that I was experiencing on the set started to manifest itself in my life. People were dying and everything in these movies, and there was a lot of blood and guts. It was all darkness.
In 2007, while Gigi's career as a scream queen was flourishing, at home, her marriage fell apart.
My life got really out of control. And in my divorce, it blew up. And I needed help after my divorce. I was raised Catholic. I understood the priest doing the communion, but I didn't understand who Christ was. I used to say to people, you know, I keep calling God and he's giving me the busy signal. I just knew that there was something missing between me and God. I had people coming into my life. I had the casting director come into my life. I had another girl who was a wardrobe lady come into my life and tell me, you know, you really ought to read the Bible. Where are you with God?
During this time, a friend offered Gigi a place to stay while she got back on her feet. One night, she tried reading the Bible.
All through all this, I was crying out to the Lord. And I said, this isn't making any sense. I don't understand what you're doing here. At that point was my complete resignation. I said, I can't do this anymore. That's it. And I just kept crying and crying in the middle of the night.
That same night, Gigi noticed a noise in the bedroom. The next morning, she asked her friend to come to her room and listen for the noise.
It sounded like a gargling noise. And she goes, oh my gosh, it sounds like the inside of a whale.
Gigi called her Christian friend and told her about the noises.
She's laughing. She says, read Jonah. Just read Jonah and call me back.
She opened to the book of Jonah, which told of a man who had disobeyed God and been swallowed in the belly of a whale for 3 days.
Every single word came out and just jumped right in my heart, and that was it. It was like I knew the answer was right in front of me. I realized that reading the Bible and understanding that Christ died for my sins so that I could be here, my whole life really, it just changed. It was bam. And I was so excited. I really didn't understand what was happening, but I was ready for Christ. After that, it was like that busy signal went away and the connection was direct.
Gigi had some hard decisions to make about her career. Several months later, she left her horror roles and moved back to Texas.
When I left California, I immediately got in a Bible-based church and started to spend lots of time with the Lord. And I realized it wasn't just my work that had to change, but the way I lived had to change. And it was amazing. Right away, I started getting blessed with work that was a quality work. And things I wouldn't audition for, they would just come to me.
Gigi co-stars with William Devane and John Schneider in her most recent film, Flag of My Father. The faith-based film tackles the issue of post-traumatic stress disorder in soldiers. It was recently awarded Best Narrative Feature at the GI Film Festival.
I actually was in the theater with soldiers, and some of them were weeping. And I realized that the healing was happening. I realized that my whole life I was supposed to be doing this. I always wanted people to know a deeper feeling inside, a deeper emotion, a deeper understanding. And now it was actually coming true, it was happening. So now I'm reaching out of love. It's a totally different thing. And that's only going to come from Christ.
Gigi's got the answer. The answer's you, is for you. Man, broken marriage, career on the rocks, all this stuff goes on. You know, Hollywood's pretty fast-paced. It's just crazy. The demands made on actors and actresses, on models, you know, the tremendous stress. And somebody who is not well-grounded, it can just be life-threatening. It took her marriage, it took her life, but God was there, and God's there for you because Jesus loves you. One of the great theologians was asked, what's the most profound thing that you have learned in your study of the Bible? And he said, Jesus loves me, this I know, because the Bible tells me so. Jesus loves you wherever you are. And what I'd like to do, I don't want to lose this opportunity to give you a chance to say yes to the Lord. If you're away from Him, you're breaking His commandments, you're lost, you don't know what to do, and you're wandering around, it's real simple. Jesus Christ came to earth, lived as a human being, was a perfect human being. He was a representative of man. He called himself the Son of Man. And then he died. He died for sin, because a perfect God cannot just gloss over your sin. He has to punish sin. He doesn't want to punish you, so he punished his son, and he let the penalty of your sin go on him. And when Jesus died, he died in your place. He died in my place, so that if we receive him, we will be forgiven for whatever we've done. That's the deal, and it's a very good one. And if you want that, all you have to do is say yes. So I'm going to lead you in a simple prayer right now, simple prayer, and take advantage of what he's done for you. Pray these words: Lord Jesus. Pray with me. Lord Jesus, I know you came to earth. I know you lived a perfect life. And then I know that you died. And I believe you rose again. Now, Lord, I know you died for me. So I take my sin and the life that I've lived and all my confusion and fears and doubt, and I give them to you, all of it. And I take your forgiveness, and I ask you, Lord Jesus, come into my heart. Live your life in me, and I will live for you, and I will serve you all the days of my life. Thank you, Lord, for hearing my prayer, and thank you for coming into my heart. Now, you can thank God for doing what he said he's going to do. He promised it, and he'll do it. And those of you who prayed that prayer with me, I've got a little package called A New Day. I'll give it to you free. It has information about what you do next. And if you just please pick up the phone and call, somebody's here who loves you. No financial obligation. It's a toll-free number. And just say, I prayed with Pat, and I want to let you know the good news. 1-800-759-0700. Christy?
Thanks, Pat. Well, coming up later on the 700 Club, we're going to answer your questions from our live chat room. Jess says, I'm 19 years old and I still live with my parents. I don't have any friends because my mom is very overprotective. I'm lonely and I'm afraid, and I'm missing out on life because she doesn't let me do anything. What should I do? Ooh, that's a good, juicy question, and we're going to answer it when we come back. So don't go away.
I didn't understand what love was. I didn't have a good example. I knew of God, and I often would think to myself, God, if you're real, help me in this situation. I told the Lord, I said, God, I don't have anything to offer you. It's just me and my little baby, and I don't have anything together. I had peace. It was so refreshing. He loves you so much that he died for you. And if he can do all of this in my life, he can do it for you.
Something inside of me just told me I need to get checked out. The doctor said we found something and we need to get into surgery.
Beth Gomez had stage 3 colon cancer.
So we scheduled an appointment for a second opinion at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
To find out more about treatment options for complex and late-stage cancer, go to cancercenter.com. You'll be able to see our treatment results for many types of cancers and how they compare to national averages. You can also check for participating insurance plans. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, every resource, every one of us, everything we do every day is focused on you, our patient, your treatment, your healing, your survival.
You had a whole team. I wasn't just going to fight this battle. They were going to stand beside me and fight it.
Our physicians, clinicians, and nurses are highly experienced and dedicated. We use state-of-the-art technology and give you treatment options you may not even know exist.
Cancer makes you really appreciate what's important in your life.
Please call or go to cancercenter.com today. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
Welcome back to the 700 Club. The House Judiciary Committee is asking President Obama to appoint a special counsel to investigate Attorney General Eric Holder. They're concerned Holder may have lied to Congress last spring. He testified he had only recently learned of the controversial Fast and Furious gun trafficking operation run by the ATF. But new documents show he was notified about the program last year. In his letter to the president, Chairman Lamar Smith says, quote, allegations that senior Justice Department officials may have intentionally misled members of Congress are extremely troubling. Well, more deaths in the listeria outbreak that's tied to cantaloupe. The Center for Disease Control raised the death toll to 18 on Tuesday. The agency confirms 100 listeria-related illnesses in 20 states. They expect those numbers to continue to rise. The symptoms of listeria can take up to 2 months to show up. The contaminated cantaloupe were traced back to Jensen Farms in Holly, Colorado. They issued a recall back in September. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website, that's cbnnews.com. Pat and Christy will be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
Do you hear that? That's opportunity knocking, because Direct Buy is celebrating its 40th anniversary and wants to invite you to the celebration. So now, just by calling the number on your screen, you can get a taste of what has been exclusively available only to Direct Buy members for 30 days free. Over 700 top quality brands with no hidden retail markup. Over the course of our 40 years, Direct Buy members have saved millions on kitchen cabinets, bathroom fixtures, major appliances, flooring, lighting. Now you can too.
If you want nicer things, you can buy them at a price that you can afford.
So call the number on your screen and you can experience Direct Buy for yourself for 30 days for free. Time is running out on this special opportunity. So call right now to try Direct Buy for 30 days free. If you're ready to experience buying and saving the Direct Buy way and finally see for yourself what everybody is talking about, then call now. Watch your mail for the Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes or go to PCH.com and enter. November 30th, you could win $1 million plus $5,000 a week for life.
All right, so we're going to jump right in with your email questions that you've sent to our chat room. Jess says, I have an extremely overprotective mother who refuses to accept the fact that I'm growing up. I'm 19 years old, but she won't let me go anywhere or do anything. I have very few friends, and I'm lonely and depressed. I talked to my mom about this, but she refuses to listen. I know God has plans for me, but I feel like I'll never be able to fulfill his purpose for my life with my mom standing in my way. What do I do?
Is Jeff's a he or a she?
Jess sounds like a girl. Jess. Sounds like a girl, like Jessica. Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? I did a man like Jess Parker or something. That's
No.
Fess Parker. Okay. You're living at home. Unfortunately, you haven't got a job, and really the time's come to move out. You know, it's a difficult thing. The Bible says we should honor our mother and father and give weight to what they have to say. Your mother is obviously hurting you. Maybe she thinks she's doing something good for you. Possibly you could get a pastor or some trusted advisor to go to your mother, some adult, and say, Mrs. whatever her name is, what you're doing with your daughter is wrong. You're stifling her creativity. Now, Jess, you need to go to school, maybe to college. You need to get a job. If you're 19, you ought to do something and get out of the house. But you don't want to rebel against your mother. That won't be cool. But see if you can't. The other thing is listen to what she says, but don't talk back to her, and go ahead and do what God's showing you. But it's a difficult situation, and the mother ought to know better. The best thing for parents, ladies and gentlemen, you parents, is you gradually give freedom more and more as the children get older, and before long they're free. Yeah. But you wean them away from you onto Jesus, so that they're listening to him instead of you. That's what I try to do with my children, and hopefully they learn from it.
Good advice. That was good advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's, like you wean a baby, a child and a parent, your relationship evolves and it changes. So,
right.
At one point, you may just become friends and friends. But move out of the house.
Right.
That's a good idea. Steve says, we just got a new puppy. When I took him to the vet for his first checkup, they were really pushing us to get the dog microchipped in case he gets lost or stolen. I'm afraid this could be another sign of Big Brother. What do you think?
Big Brother has to do with people, not dogs. So a microchip in your dog is not the worst thing in the world. So if you lose him, Depends on how, I mean, if he's a little mutt, I mean, so if you lose him, tough luck. But I mean,
Pat, you can't say it's a mutt, tough luck. I have a little baby cockapoo.
Did you get him a chip put in him?
No.
You see, you don't care.
I do care. That's not true. Did you get a chip in blue?
Well, the people who got him just got a chip in him because they won't take him to the Cayman Islands. They have to have chips before they let him into the country.
All right.
I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea to have an animal like this. I mean, whatever. You love him, whatever his background. He may be a rescue dog, but you still love him. And a chip's not going to hurt. No, it's not a sign of big brother. It's a sign of you want to get your dog back. All right.
That's true. Identification, that if the dog goes a running, they can find a who, mom, pa. All right, Ann says, my friend believes we should tithe on our Social Security checks. However, I don't think it's necessary because all the years I was employed, I tithe on my gross salary. Wouldn't I be tithing twice on the same money? That's a good question.
Oh, come on. You're not dealing with a Philadelphia lawyer. It's the money coming to you. You love the Lord and you want to continue to give to him. And, you know, you give out of the love of your heart. You don't give because of some rule that says you must do this. And I'm going to calculate what it was 20 years ago when I was tithing on my salary, and therefore I don't owe any now. Nah. Give out of the abundance of your heart from a joyful heart, period.
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 Here's a question from Susie who says, the Bible says knock and the door will be opened. I think God opened a door for me and I missed it. Will God open another door for me? That's an interesting question, Pat. What do you think?
Well, I tell you what, a lot of times opportunities come to us and we ignore them and we lose out. And yes, he'll give you more opportunities, but you may have missed something, a blessing. He's got blessings for you behind those doors. And if you lose the blessing, yes, he's had more blessings, but you may have something special. He might have a special opportunity and you turned him down. So I don't know what to say, except, are there more opportunities? Of course there are. God is infinite, and he will continue to give you opportunities. But when he sends them, be sensitive enough to recognize what it is, and then rejoice that you have received it. Last question.
Very good. Chris says, I've been searching for a job for 2 years, but no one will hire me. My prayers aren't being answered. What happened to God's promise, and how long should I wait?
Chris, you need to think what it is that you're asking for. You know, people aren't interested in your problems. An employer wants to know what you're going to do to help him. And so you study the business you want to work at, and you say, here's how I can contribute something to the profit of that company. I can make their product better. I can speed up their production line. I can be more efficient in delivering their products to their customers. Whatever it is, you think of ways how you can help them, and you say, Mr. Smith, I'm here because I believe I can be an assistance to you in your task, and here's what I'll do. But at the same time, speak favor. Keep that one word in mind. And when you pray, say, God, give me your favor. When you go to bed at night, when you wake up, say, I have the favor of the Lord. In the afternoon, you say, I have the favor of the Lord. When you go to see an employer, I have the favor of the Lord. And the favor of the Lord will cover you. And when you walk into some employment area, you will have favor surrounding you because God will give you his favor. But few things like that. That'll help you. All right.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
You did good today.
Oh, I'm so glad.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, up next, find out how a family feud 4,000 years old has actually turned into one of the biggest threats facing the world today. Coming up next on the 700 Club.
Here at CBN, we see incredible things happen when we stand together.
That's why we want to thank the thousands of you who recently pledged to join the 700 Club.
Your monthly gift makes it possible to bring crucial help to people who need it most.
Each day, you have a part in healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and broadcasting the gospel across America and around the world.
You've brought hope and help to those in desperate need.
And changed their lives forever.
Just like you did for Yasana. He lived in a slum, breaking rocks for $2 a day. That's when you sent him goats to raise, providing his family a better income. And you gave his grandchildren school supplies, changing the future for Yasana and his family.
So please watch for this mailing and send in your pledge.
This year, millions will experience the love and saving power of Jesus Christ.
only because you were there.
When you look in the mirror, can you imagine erasing years of aging?
That's what I used to look like.
Lifestyle Lift takes only about an hour. See the difference immediately.
I'm Linda. I'm 70 years old. Can you believe it?
Call now for a free information kit. It's quick, affordable, and takes only about an hour. Lifestyle Lift, a breakthrough medical procedure that helps remove wrinkles, frown lines, and sagging skin. Call now for a free information kit. Consultations are free. Call Lifestyle Lift today.
Tomorrow, they call them drug muggers, and they're robbing you of your health. America's most trusted pharmacist, Susie Cohen, tells you which of your prescription drugs may be making you sicker. Plus, he did everything he could.
I could hear my boys on the other side of the wall of flames yelling for their daddy.
But it wasn't enough.
I saw the walls falling in on the trailer.
What he did next, tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Good to have this learned gentleman back with us. Daniel Lapin has been called America's Rabbi. And while studying ancient scriptures, he learned one thing. The Bible isn't just a revelation of the past, it's a blueprint for the future. Would you?
Decipher the code of an ancient language. Go beneath the surface of the most popular book ever and change the way you view the world. In his latest project, Clash of Destiny, Rabbi Daniel Lapin exposes the biblical roots of today's deadly Middle East conflicts, which affect news everywhere. Learn how to unlock the keys to this 3,000-year-old text. It will strengthen your faith, family, and finances.
Well, it's a delight to have back a dear friend who's just got a DVD out called Clash of Destiny, Decoding the Secrets of Israel and Islam, Rabbi Daniel Lapin. Hey, it's good to see you.
It's wonderful to be together again with you.
Hey, listen, what are you saying about this? What's this about?
Well, that's first of all, it's an audio CD set. It's 2 CDs. That's a couple of hours of material, biblical prophecy on Israel and Islam, where this is all going. Basically, trying to understand yesterday's news headlines, tomorrow's news headlines. There's also a study guide in there that shows how some of these ancient secrets of Jewish wisdom can be extracted even by people who don't yet read the Lord's language, to read Hebrew.
Where's it going? Islam and Israel.
Okay, well, obviously the important thing is to understand that, not a blade of grass grows without it being part of God's plan.
Yes.
And so the idea that things are just rambling along in a random kind of a way in the Middle East, you and I both know to be an absurd proposition.
Sure.
There is a plan, there is a program here. And I think one of the most astonishing aspects of it is to just look and see prophetically how reliable everything has been. So, for instance, in Leviticus chapter 26, when God says, when your enemies are in possession of the land, I shall make it desolate. My goodness, how true is that the Middle East has never worked when it hasn't been occupied by Israel.
Yes,
it just never has.
Right.
As a matter of fact, Gaza functioned pretty well until 2005, when the Israelis pulled out and left it to the other folks. It's once again, nothing's growing there. The greenhouses have been destroyed and shattered. So that's a prophecy that was. The other part of it that's so amazing is to see that the Torah, in ancient Jewish wisdom, the Bible, actually explains something which we have lived through, which is one of the great mysteries, the plot of 9/11.
Really?
The plot of 9/11. I mean, not only do we find references in Zechariah to 4 mysterious craft that come through between 2 mountains made of metal. Again, in biblical terminology, mountains can be natural mountains, or also anything tall that grows up, like 2 buildings. Also, the idea that the plot was hatched not in Mecca or Medina or Riyadh or anywhere else in Saudi Arabia. That plot was hatched in Hamburg, Germany, and was based on a dream that Adolf Hitler had in 1943. Which was to fly suicide Luftwaffe German Air Force bombers into the towers of Manhattan.
Are you serious? That was a Hitler's dream?
This was a Hitler dream described in a book called Spandau Diary, written by one of the Nazis who was captured after the war, and who witnessed, and actually I've seen drawings, and I don't doubt for a moment that the Muslim plotters in the mosque in Hamburg who laid out the plans for 9/11, I don't doubt for a moment that they encountered those same plans. I don't think they thought of this themselves. Sure. This was the fulfillment of a dream that was really put in place early on in World War II.
What do you see? We're sitting here in almost 2012. What do you see? Does the Bible say something about ongoing from here that you see?
Yes, and I lay this out in great detail in what I call Clash of Destiny, decoding the secrets of Israel and Islam, because I think it's important that we derive a certain amount of joy and hope and optimism from the truth and accuracy of all of God's prophecies and predictions to date, and therefore we can know that the future is also going to move along those same prophetic lines, ultimately one of optimism. Yes, there is no question about it that Islam has an ominous and disturbing relationship with the philosophy of the people known as Amalek, the people who attacked Israel directly after the Exodus. This is a relationship that the Nazi philosophy also shared with Amalek, and that would be why it is that the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, the Islamic leader Hussein, during World War II, had these close ties with Nazi Germany. I mean, you think they're hardly the Aryan dream, but that relationship is rooted back all the way back in the birth of Ishmael, Abraham's son, with Sarah's maidservant Hagar.
Clash between him and the
well,
child
absolutely,
of promise.
and you'll remember that one of the things when Sarah drives her away, she places down her baby. She places him, Ishmael. She puts him. It's called a bow shot, the distance you can shoot an arrow away.
Yes.
It doesn't say a few yards or a little way. This is like if you would say to me, how far is it from the entrance of Norfolk Airport to gate 37? I'd say, it's about as far as you could shoot a .357 Magnum round out of a 3-inch revolver barrel.
All right.
I mean, that's a funny way to give distances.
Yeah, okay.
And look, there's only one culture that celebrates weddings by firing weapons into the air. And I'll give you a clue. It's not Anglicans or Methodists.
Okay.
There's a special relationship with weapons that Islam has, going all the way back to that point. As a matter of fact, the only person in the history of the world who has ever addressed the United Nations with a gun holster on his hip was Yasser Arafat in November 1974.
Indeed he did. Well, I wish we had more time for this, but anyhow, Rabbi, you're a dear friend, and this is Clash of Destiny. You want to get this. Where do they get it?
The easiest place is at my website, which is www.youneedarabbi.com.
You need a rabbi. You can remember that.
Or alternatively, they can dial, there's a toll-free number, 888-RABBI-41.
Amen. Thank you.
While Mary feeds her 2 young daughters, she also helps feed needy families around the world. While Bob hands a drink out to a coworker, he helps give water to villages with new wells. And while Carl builds a house for his son's new puppy, he helps rebuild homes in disaster areas.
These people all have something in common. They're CBN partners who have joined Pledge Express. I hope you'll consider joining Pledge Express too. It's a way to simplify your own life while speeding help to others, all at the same time. There are no checks to remember or stamps to buy, and your gift goes to work faster, helping those who need it most. So join us and change the world for someone today.